So we're really delighted today to have Dustin Hemsath and CARLA Stone here to present their research on their work with teacher candidates. Dustin is a PhD student in the second language education program in the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, and CARLA is a lecturer in that same program. And the title of their talk today is Widening the View Using Swivl Technology to Enhance Teacher Candidates' Reflections. So welcome, Dustin and CARLA. We're looking forward to your talk.
Thank you, Kate. And thank you, CARLA, for allowing us to present this project with you today. But I think more importantly, thank you for the acceptance of our proposal for the summer research project, which really allowed us to dig into some pre-existing data. And this is data that we collected last year, thanks in part to a grant from the Technology Committee of Curriculum and Instruction, which allowed for the purchase of 2 Swivl kits, which you'll hear more about today. And all of that stemmed from conversations that we've been having with the Teacher Educator Technology Initiative, which is an initiative through the College of Education and Human Development, supporting teacher educators in really thinking about how we can enhance our candidates' experiences in the classroom. Our focus for the last few years has been on thinking about ways we can really get our candidates to notice language output, not only through their weekly reflections that they do in their base groups with their peers, but capturing video in different ways and reflecting on those experiences together. So pre-EdTPA, which is our large performance assessment that is required of teacher candidates in the state of Minnesota, we've been doing video observations, video reflections for a long time in our second language educator initial license program. And that program is for K through 12 licenses in English as a second language, world language, and classical languages. So with that, I'm going to actually turn this over now to Dustin, who's going to carry you through the rest of this presentation and describe to you the research that he did. Thanks again in large part to CARLA for the funding this summer. So Dustin.
Hey, thank you, CARLA, for that. And I also want to thank CARLA and the TEDdy program and CARLA Stone for giving and providing this opportunity and sponsoring it. It was a really fun project. So it's based on the idea of using video in pre-service teachers' development, right? In their professional development here. Now, when it comes to video use in the teacher education programs, video has been used for decades now, since the 60s. And ever since that technology has been developed to fit into a classroom and to be used and normalized in that way. However, since that time, nothing else has really changed. There has been the use of a single camera and a single microphone in most cases to analyze a teacher's practices and the events that are occurring in the classroom. And we're calling that traditional video for the purposes of this project. The use of a single camera with a single microphone in the classroom, even though those devices may differ. Obviously, it was with larger camcorders, and those progressively got smaller. And currently, many are using tablets or iPads to record themselves. And even that's what was happening in our program. Even all the teacher candidates have received iPads with which they could use to film themselves in their teaching environments, as well as using some of their own devices, their phones and so forth. But since the 60s, it's basically been this traditional video capture in the classrooms. However, there's research that is suggesting that technology is increasing so much that there's new tools that may increase the ability for teachers to notice more of their practices. And one of those tools that we've discovered recently is the Swivl. And to explain what the Swivl is very quickly, is a device that is compatible with a current mobile device, whether it be a tablet or a phone, and it plugs into a swivel base, which rotates 360 degrees following an infrared tracker or marker that is intended to be worn around the teacher's neck on a lanyard, and then follows that teacher around the room. That marker that the teacher wears is also a wireless microphone, and the kits come with other wireless microphones, between 3 and 5 usually in the kits that they're selling today, that can be placed around the room with different students. This is the hardware. Swivl kits also come with some software on the website that we also utilized in this project. You can pay for a pro account, or there's also free accounts for the teacher candidates, which we used. We had a pro account for both Carla and I to have the full features that the software allows. And that includes cloud storage and sharing of the videos, group collaboration on those videos. The owner of a video can edit the video within that program, and there's other analyses that the program does automatically. As you can see down in the picture there, it says statistics and speech analysis, which I'll mention briefly later on here. So these are the features of the Swivl that we thought, yes, maybe these are technologies that could help student teachers notice more about their practices. So we wanted to learn more. How do those features enhance teacher reflections as compared to traditional video recording? And as we started our search, we saw that Franklin and colleagues had a study about, it was a pilot study about the Swivl device and its usage in this context. And really the only credit that it gave to the Swivl, that it could do more than traditional video, was that it caught some unengagement of students in the back of the room, one of their participants mentioned. And that participant gave credit to the Swivl, that it was because of the Swivl I could see that the students in the back of my room were unengaged. But that was it. There was no description of the logistics of why the Swivl was able to capture that, rather than using a traditional video that was pointed towards the back of the room, which we thought, well, that could capture, a traditional video could capture this. And it has captured this in other situations that we're used to. Other studies have used the Swivl as a data collection device, but the data was analyzed as if it were traditional video and gave no description of how it improved the type of data that they collected. Swivl Incorporated also did their own studies in order to promote their product, and they used language like telling what this does as compared to traditional video, such as captures entire classes and lessons, crystal clear audio. It also talked about their online collaboration tools and editing, the fact that a single teacher could use this product without the use of another videographer to get the entire classroom. But there is no mention of how those features affect teacher reflections. And so from what we could find, there is no research on how these features can improve or affect teacher reflections in a pre-service program. And so we ended with that same question: how can Swivl technology enhance teacher candidates' reflections? And in our program, and for this pilot study, was focused only on one aspect of that reflection, which is language output in the second language education department in K-12 classrooms, because that's where our student teachers are. So we have some other data here, some other research that we've done on the use of video in reflections and those effects. We don't want to go over this now for time's sake. However, I will show these slides now so that those of you who would like to go back to the CARLA website and view this video can pause it on these slides and get these resources. You can also email Carla Stone or I afterwards, and we can get you a copy of this presentation as well, so that you have access to these resources as well as the reference list at the end of the presentation. What we do want to cover is the theoretical framework that serves as a foundation for this work, which is situated learning. This idea is based off of John Dewey's work, in that experiences serve as a learning opportunity, and specifically authentic experiences serve as these these learning opportunities. And research has moved forward to using that idea and having an intentionality in those experiences. Like, how can we harness an experience received to continuously learn from it? And if we can harness that, Clancy says that we can reflect multiple times on those authentic experiences, which will then yield improvement in our behaviors and practices. So when we take those authentic experiences into education, Sharon and Van Ness say that the classroom is a complex environment with multiple interactions occurring at the same time. And I think all of us who have that experience can agree that there's so much going on in a classroom, and even more depending on how many students you have, you know, as class sizes rise. Borko and her colleagues then said, well, a way to harness this and capture these complexities is through the use of video, and using that video as an artifact of that authentic experience. And that way it supplements, the video can supplement what has normally been done through just memory of the experience, with other details. And things that the teacher has missed can also be seen. Things that were never even processed into memory by the teacher can then be noticed through that process, through video. So Blomberg and colleagues also said situated learning environments are designed to immerse the learner in complex situations, and thus seem well suited for supporting novice teachers learning with video. So we wanted to take this idea of situated learning and capturing complex situations using the Swivl device, because it is able to rotate and capture more audio perhaps. And we wanted to see in what way does it do that, and how does it affect reflections. So our methods here, we had 6 total participants for this study. They were all in secondary placements. 3 of them were in world language placements, and 3 of them were in ESL placements at the time of the time that the data we used was collected. I'll say it that way because we weren't planning on using this information for anything other than the program's, an evaluation of the program, until we had the opportunity to apply for the CARLA grant. So this data was collected before our grant and our IRB was approved. But what we expected from these 6 participants and our general teacher candidates in the program was that they film at least 1 lesson of themselves teaching per semester. Now, it's a 2-semester program, it's a year program, and they student teach for 2 different semesters. However, during the fall semester, in which we collected some of this data, we were receiving the Swivl products that we had received grants for, but the timelines didn't match up for us. So we did not use the Swivl in the fall semesters. We did use Video Ant as an online collaboration tool for those traditional videos of the teachers' classrooms, but none of those videos were available to us, so we didn't use those as any of our data for this. During the fall semester, we did start, we gave a 1-hour training to our teacher candidates. Teddy came in city administrators came in and they gave a 1-hour Swivl training to them. And after that training, we encouraged our TCs to check out a Swivl kit if available and practice using it on their own in their classrooms, which a couple of people did. But I am unaware if any of our 6 candidates did at that time. However, in the spring, we used the Swivl kit to record video of for group collaboration and peer collaboration. So we had one Swivl kit available to the 6 participants, which included 1 bass, 3 mics, my pro account, and then each of them had a free Swivl account as well. An important piece of information here is that these videos were recorded because we only had 1 Swivl kit that remained in my possession. And when I went to go do supervisor observations, I brought the Swivl kit and my iPad, and we filmed the lesson that I was observing live with these teacher candidates, which means that immediately after I observed, we did not watch the video, but we did a post-observation debrief and reflection together. So that was based on memory. So they had talked about these lessons beforehand. In total, then, I was able to go in and record 8 lessons using the Swivl, and we took those videos about between 40 to 60 minutes each, and we analyzed those on our own. Now, those videos were used by the teacher candidates to select about 3 minutes worth of video clips that they then brought to their base group, this small group of 6 teacher candidates, and they analyzed and discussed the video together. Those discussions, again, we weren't aware that this was going to become a project at the time, so they were not recorded. But during this activity, the TC peers were asked to identify general noticings as they watched these video clips. They were asked to identify moments of student language output and teacher language output. After these discussions happened, the teacher candidate who presented their video was then asked to write a 1 to 2 page reflection, and this happened both semesters, a 1 to 2 page reflection on that video analysis that they did with their peers. And those written analyses were then, or written reflections were also analyzed by us, were collected and analyzed. In the fall, we only had 5 reflections and an additional email that was asking for specific feedback in the reflections when she showed the video. But that email also presented some of her own noticings within the video, so we used that. In the spring, all 6 submitted reflections after the group discussion. And again, we considered, or we encouraged these TCs to use these videos that were collected for their EdTPAs at the time. And we know that at least one of them did use it for her EdTPA, which is great. So how did we take this, how did we analyze this data? First of all, in the videos, we watched the videos multiple times each, all the way through on different settings, using the different audio that was captured, looking for output events, either from the teacher or the students. And we coded them according to a priori codes, Swivl capture and traditional video capture. Now the difference between these, because we only used the Swivl device, traditional video capture qualified as an event where we thought that if the same event was recorded using traditional video, we would have received the same data. For example, perhaps a student was speaking in the back of the room, but it was still heard over the teacher's microphone. That would have been considered traditional video capture. But perhaps a similar situation, we heard a student talk, but the speech was not decipherable over the teacher's microphone, but it was decipherable over one of the student microphones. That data only became available due to the Swivl features, and then was counted as a Swivl capture. The written video reflections by the teacher candidates was openly coded, looking for general themes, language teacher practices, and noticings from the teacher candidates of language output. So all that to say, the exciting news, right? At least we find it interesting. I hope you do too. So if we were to separate that data between the a priori codes, traditional video capture, which is TVC, and Swivl capture, according to language output events. Now, language output does not specify or divide that between target language output versus English or first language output. That could be done in another study, and that's not what we used here. It was just general output from either. But we see here that in traditional video capture, about 28% of all of the events of language output that we captured probably could have been captured by traditional video recording hardware and software. However, the other evidences or the other events of language output in the classroom was about 72% of the total, which is suggesting that Swivl is capturing a lot more data, a lot more language output than traditional video can, providing more data for teacher candidates to notice as they go back and they watch their videos. Now, we also split this data up into teacher versus student output. And if we look at the traditional video output, we notice that 18.5% of all of the data that could have been captured using traditional video was from the teacher, was teacher output. And only 9.4 coming from the students. So really, this is suggesting that a traditional video capture of a classroom event, it's mostly the teacher giving that output and maybe what is perceived, how it's perceived. However, out of the Swivl the output that was only available through the Swivl capture, we see that 21% is coming from the teacher and 51% almost is coming from the students. And so now the students are providing the majority of that output, and that's available to our teacher candidates as they rewatch their videos and they notice. And if you combine these two, because all of this data was captured by the Swivl, so as a whole, we can see that 60% about of this data is coming from student language output, and only 40% is coming from the teacher, which is a more accurate display of what we're hoping is happening in classrooms, where students are speaking more or outputting more. So we found this very, very interesting and very significant when it comes to using the Swivl in these contexts for teacher education. Moving into some more qualitative data here, we thought this first quote showed maybe how a lot of us feel about new technologies as they're rolled out into our programs. Cassandra says, "I have avoided using the Swivl. Why do I need to use something that does the same as my iPad?" Excuse me. And I feel that maybe a lot of us might feel the same way, or a lot of our teacher candidates might feel the same way when we ask them to use a new device or a new technology. Obviously, from the previous data, we can see that there's more being captured and therefore more to notice. And so it's important to try out these new features and to analyze them to see what they're yielding. Within the reflections, there all of the features that the Swivl provided were mentioned by the candidates in their reflections. The first was the Swivl's namesake, which is that 360 rotating. There wasn't much focus on this, to be honest. However, one comment that came up is Nikki's, this last one here at the right, on the right. She said that the Swivl allowed her, or gave her the opportunity to truly analyze what was happening in her classroom from different perspectives. So obviously this 360 rotating feature gave her visual perspectives of how to see her classroom, and especially from a student's perspective perhaps. But she says that that was enough to give her more information and understand what was more accurately happening in her classroom. There were some not so positive comments about the video. Cassandra thought the video following her was a little creepy. Susan said that the Swivl video did not really impact what was recorded. So she would have captured the same things from her lesson as if she had used traditional video capture. But what Susan's especially shows us here is that she's also noticing how she's planning, what kind of a teacher she's becoming if the lesson doesn't require some movement of this video camera. The most common feature that was mentioned by the teacher candidates was the use of the multiple microphones. All teacher candidates made some kind of mention, directly or indirectly, about the microphones. And a couple of significant ones here are just the terminology used. Susan saw the usefulness of those microphones. Cassandra says, my voice was clear. The kids' voices were clear on the video. And this is after they've done traditional video capture as well. The audio and video was better. Nikki's, again, is interesting here, where she says, the ability to hear my students were, what my students were saying when I wasn't near them. So there's this data that she wouldn't have even had in her memory because she couldn't hear it except for the microphone that was placed by these students that she saw was a benefit. Clearly showed student output, was Charles' comment here. Another situation was the use of the online tools, in which they gave some feedback to each other collaboratively. Francis liked how it evaluated how much teacher talk there was and how much student talk there was. So this is a feature of Swivl that automatically calculates percentages of how much the teacher was talking versus how much the student was talking, but that is only compared to the main marker, which the teacher wears around their neck, and whatever input is coming into that is counted as teacher input. So if a student is heard, that would still count as the teacher input, right? So it's not an exact or an accurate measurement, but it does show her a general idea of something that she appreciated and she valued. Danielle didn't get too many online collaboration, but she did mention that there was a quality there of those who did comment on her video, that their comments were quality. There are some things to look into here on correlation, but that we thought that was interesting. 4 of them mentioned how the setup affected their attitudes of using this equipment. The idea, all of them were in regards to me setting up the equipment, since I went in and I set it up for them. 3 of them liked that. They enjoyed they didn't have to pay attention to that while they're preparing for an observation and a recording of their lesson. Whereas Frances, she says that because it was set up before the students actually came into the room, it caused actually a little bit of some chaos within the classroom and some distraction with her students. However, she was the only one in a middle school classroom as compared to a high school. Some of them mentioned some pedagogical uses of the Swivl device itself, rather than for teacher education, but rather for student assessment. Frances mentions that she wanted to plan more deliberate language tasks for the students, now that she knows how the Swivl device and the microphones work. Susan, again, talks about the usefulness of these microphones, if only her students were producing more. And Nikki, again, says she could use it to better assess not only student understanding, but also their engagement, and be able to assess students herself rather than just looking at her own practices as a teacher. So some general impressions, though they may have gone in a little nervous of the Swivl, we had terms such as it was nice to use the Swivl as an asset to teachers, and that they really enjoyed using the Swivl device for this purpose. So what does this all mean? The existing literature here shows a lot of outcomes that video reflection could give, such as connecting, as they continue to do video reflection, their noticings change from teacher-focused to student-focused. They change the who, the what, and the how they're noticing things. They're connecting theory to their practices more, and their conversations are more productive. But that's only after about 10 to 12 reflections through video. We obviously don't have enough data to compare any of our outcomes to that when it comes to how can a Swivl improve reflections, unfortunately, but it gives us a starting place, how we can move forward with this data. However, what we do see is that traditional video presents a limited view of the classroom, and that accurate interpretation is required if we are going to place the students in a situated context where they can learn as much as they can, right? So we want to capture as much of that classroom experience as possible. And that the Swivl can help do this. The Swivl can capture more of the classroom than we're getting with traditional video. And Spiro and colleagues say that we should shoot for better approximations as much as we're able, and with an understanding that we'll never get all the way. There's no way that we can capture everything that happens in the moment, because of how complex those situations are in the classroom. However, it's still a lot more than we had before. And we agree with that comment, that the goal of the use of video should be to be capturing as much of the complexities of the classroom as we can, and as close of an approximated manner as possible. However, Blomberg and her colleagues also said that this process shouldn't be overwhelming. Video analysis shouldn't be overwhelming to teacher candidates. And we feel that those feelings of overwhelming feelings can be mitigated through the structure of video reflection, and as we present these opportunities to teacher candidates. So a couple of limitations, and I'll finish up here very briefly, is that obviously, like we said, there's too few video data that we have to show really what's being changed according to as an effect of the Swivl capabilities. We see some needs for some more training on the Swivl device, because there's a lot of additional features that these students did not know how to use. They were still fearful of setting it up even. So these teachers need to become comfortable with using it. There's some criticality that we might want to look into here with the Swivl, however, because it's very teacher-centered, just like traditional video has been. It's always been pointed towards the teacher. The teacher has the main microphone, or at least that's the intention of the Swivl. So we could look into more research in that way. And the pedagogical uses, how can the Swivl be used as a teacher tool in a classroom, is what we're seeing that the teacher candidates are noticing. And if the Swivl or similar devices were allowed in the classroom, how would that affect language teaching generally? We appreciate you all being here today. That is our presentation for you, and we'd like to open it up to questions now. Again, if you'd like a copy of this presentation, you can email CARLA or I, and we will get you a copy of it. The video of this presentation will also be posted, I believe, on the CARLA website for future viewing. So thank you again. We'll take some questions.
I just want to repeat that you have the option of raising your hand in the participant window, and we can call on you to ask your question orally, or if you want to put your question in the chat, we invite you to do that as well. And I see there's already a question here from Shannon, so I'll leave it to Carla.
Before I address that question from Shannon, I just want to thank Dustin, and also recognize that while he very generously used the word "we" throughout the presentation, this was primarily Dustin's work. When COVID hit, life shifted for me professionally, and while I was grateful to be the sounding board, I really commend Dustin for diving deep on the literature and working on this project. So I just wanted to make that acknowledgement. And I do see Shannon's question in the chat. I should also say it's orchestra time at my house, so if you hear cello music in the background, that's what's happening. So the question is about training to supervisors who are observing candidates, and that's an excellent question and observation. For us in second language education this year, all of our candidates are actually student teaching online, even if their teachers are in hybrid situations. And our supervisors actually are not allowed into schools at the moment. So I can imagine, though, programs where the candidates are in schools and the supervisors are not allowed in, that this technology could really enhance the ability to capture classroom practices and be useful in those debrief of the supervision and observations. We're still honestly working out the logistics of how to get these two Swivl kits into Pike Hall. We need to apply for permission to go in, to bring them in, and then work out the process for utilizing the curriculum library in Pike Hall as the place for them to be checked out departmentally. So they are available as soon as we can physically get them there.
I could just ask a follow-up question to that. I was thinking, Dustin, as you put up that slide about, limitations, future directions, implications, and you said that this has the potential to inform language teaching and learning, but I also wonder about Swivl as a professional development tool for teacher educators. Do you have any further thoughts on that?
Well, I think my only thoughts on that are that absolutely, I think it's a teaching tool generally. And when it comes to teacher educators and teacher education, I believe it probably provides similar information. It'll provide more. But we're also, there's a strong push right now for reflection within teacher education, right? And if that's the case, then if we use this Swivl to reflect on our own practices and other practices, our colleagues' practices, we can notice more, right? Is kind of what this is telling us so far, that there is a potential to notice more and give us more to reflect on in any situation, be it a K-12 classroom or be it in higher education. So I think the application is the same, but it also provides that encouragement to reflect more on these programs.
I'd also like to just add that while the Swivl is the technology we had access to, I don't want this to come across as an endorsement for a particular tool necessarily. There's no sort of paid advertising involved here. I do know of some other 360 video technologies and tools that are available. I'm not aware of other ways to capture, use multiple microphones to capture output in a classroom, though they very well may exist too. And I think that's the most exciting piece, is this opportunity to have different channels of audio to tap into, to try to get, as one of the candidates said, not just different perspectives, but even just baseline, like what's happening around the room when, as a teacher, you can only focus on so much at one time. And so I think there is a potential for deeper levels of analysis. And I see Mike's question in the chat. Yeah, our plan was to use this technology this year if we were in schools as we had been in the past. And so ideally moving forward, I think we could even design stronger questions moving into spaces where we're capturing these multiple channels, especially of the audio, to look at language output in, you know, multiple uses of language, different languages, right? Heritage language, English, world language, target language, whatever that might be.
And if I could add to that, there's so many facets, right, that we could use this for to capture data. Like I said, start dividing it into what type of language output, target or first language, and so forth. But also developing a program or a routine where they're throughout the year they are doing, you know, 10 to 12 video reflections where we can see those if there are changes to their reflections. So there would be some changes as we apply it, and that obviously would take some time. But
Carla, this is Patricia, and I was the one who asked the question in regards to the Swivl and university supervisors. And just to kind of piggyback on that, some colleges and or universities have teacher candidates who are going, or their university supervisors are going in to the classroom. So I can't, to clarify your statement, I won't say all schools, but some are doing different models. And so with that, one of my roles at the university that I work with is to help coordinate those supervisors for those teacher candidates. One of the things that I mentioned or looking at is sharing this tool with those university supervisors. So my question, and if it might have seemed fast because I was typing and listening at the same time, might have meant, I would like to provide this training or the use of it, because some of our students have used that in terms of doing some presentations and some of the stuff that Dustin has mentioned in his presentation. However, by working it on two folds, I do have a lot of supervisors who are retired, who are health conscious, who are blah, 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 you know, with COVID. But I want to be able to demonstrate this tool to them, and as well as having them to share with the students and the cooperating or the host teacher. Some of them may be exposed, but I know a lot of my supervisors actually do not have that tech experience. So I wanted to use this as a tool to help them. And I think it would be beneficial, you know, kind of getting them up to par, and if needing to use it somewhere else or again, but then having everybody working together. So that was my question, basically, in training the supervisors in using this. And what I was really looking for was how, and I probably can go on YouTube, it's like, how does it work? How does it put together? And I kind of know that, but giving them an actual visual of how this would look, since it would be presenting virtually, if that makes sense.
yeah, I thank you for that. I think
right before you answer, are there videos that can demonstrate how I can share with them how to use this tool, how to set it up, so forth and so on? Do you guys have any of that?
That's a great question. I'm sure that I know that there are some videos. I don't know what details they do. I did not watch them. But I will also add that there's, they do have a user manual that we actually didn't have or know that we had access to when we started this. So like, for example, we put the Swivl, or I put the Swivl in the back of the classroom. So it never actually needed to do the full 360 rotation, because there wasn't any space behind the camera for the teacher to move in many of the cases. But like the manual says, oh, it should be in the middle of the room, only 6 feet away from the whiteboard or the front of, the teacher or something like that. So there are some instructions on that. But it wasn't until I actually got into it and looked at the features online that there's settings that you can do before you start recording. So if you have students that speak softly, and even if the microphone's right in front of them, it still may not capture them. You can raise or lower the gains according to how loud or soft a student speaks. There's a lot of these features that aren't necessarily explained, but I have found videos explaining those to me. So those videos definitely could work. Also, using the Swivl itself to show how you're using it, and then posting those videos for online collaboration to those who you're training how to use it could be possible. Now we got 2 kits, and in many places the company suggests that, maybe not suggests, but also gives a suggestion that you could use 2 Swivl devices in a classroom so that you have more perspectives and things. And if you have that, definitely you could use one Swivl to record and one Swivl as just a manipulation tool on that video as you train and as you get them to understand it. But I definitely would say that an hour is not sufficient. It needs to be a process that is planned out and organized to understand it and to be comfortable with it before it's actually used.
Thank you, Dustin. I appreciate that. And of course, with, as I call them, chronologically seasoned advanced seniors, it would be taking some time and kind of working that out. So thank you.
Sure, yeah.
I'm noticing in the chat that we have Amanda, who I'm guessing maybe is from Swivl. And I don't know if you want to unmute or add anything, Amanda, but it does sound like there's a lot of free webinars and training available.
There is. I really enjoyed your presentation, by the way. There's been a few of us that watched, so thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to we do offer free training, so there's more than just like what's on the website. So if anybody does have questions, we're happy to answer them. And then as far as the webinars, we do get a lot of people that are looking into Swivl that come and attend the webinars, because we have our support team and training team people there to answer any questions before you make a purchase, because we know that it's an investment and we want to make sure that you get the right product for your use case. So that's important to us.
Thank you, Amanda, for coming on and joining us today. I've been receiving all of your invitations to those webinars, and unfortunately my time has been taken up preparing this presentation.
Well, we'll have to have you join us another time when you take a break, relax. We appreciate this. Go tour and share everything that you've done here. And thank you.
Well, we're grateful that you're attending with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to go back to a comment in the chat from Jenna about, and maybe Dustin, this is something you could address. If you found anything in the literature about how to alleviate new technology angst, especially that avoidance of like, well, what I have already works, so why would I try something new?
Great question. I don't have anything offhand here about how to alleviate that or what. I do have some background in knowing that it's inevitable among student teachers, just because I think of those complexities. And so again, and this is more hypothetical than research based, that by structuring reflections and the use of these technologies and adding more training as part of that structure, we can alleviate those anxieties amongst our student teachers as we use new tools. But again, that's a process, and it takes some planning. So, but I have not found research that specifically talks about that type of structuring in regards to anxiety.
And Jenna, I'll just add that we, through our TEDdy support in the College of Education and Human Development, we did have the day when our training was really a chance for the candidates to practice and play around with it. We set up the devices, they could move around the room, they could play around with the microphone. And I think just based on comfort level and capacity for adding anything else new into their lives, some picked up on it right away, and then others were good. And it was an optional exploration for us last year since it was new and because of the timing. And we'll have to think about moving forward beyond this year, if we're back in schools more regularly, what that might look like and how we can build that comfort level.
Thanks, Carla. Yeah, I think we did do some things to try to alleviate that. And again, there's also dispositional things to this, right? Some of our teacher candidates don't like technology as much as others. And Cassandra was one of those that did not like a large amount of technology being used in the classroom.
So we still have a few minutes for questions. Feel free to put things in the chat or raise your hand if you have any other questions. I just want to say thank you to Nasira for her comment. I assume this means you're attending from Algeria, and if that's true, then we're just thrilled to have you here. We hope that you can use Swivl in Algeria, or at least take some of the findings from this to help you out.
Yeah, I agree with your comment, Jenna. I think there's a lot of potential with these multiple microphones to really explore how students are using languages and to be able to pick up on that in those when students are working, when students are leading, and giving them some agency over how they're approaching the tasks that are being designed. I think it is very exciting. We're just kind of on the cusp of what we might do.
Thank you, Nikki. We definitely will as we move forward. We really support the, we really love the support and are grateful for the support that TEDdy has given in the process and introducing us and providing us a grant to purchase the Swivl devices. And without that, I mean, this would be non-existent, right? So.
Yeah, Sam, your comment is well taken and agreed. I think that the opportunity to move around, but I can see the potential of once you've built a community of trust and respect in a classroom, allowing the students to be the one with the tracker, depending on what the task is. And so the camera's not then as teacher, so it's not as teacher-centered in the focus on what's happening in the classroom. That would be another option.
All right, well, I think we've hit all the questions. I want to thank Dustin and Carla again for this really exciting presentation. I can see so many uses for this tool. I'm thinking about action research and all different kinds of things that this could help support. So we really appreciate the inspiring presentation. And I want to thank everybody who came today. We know that you have to make choices about the time that you spend online and in front of a camera, and we really appreciate that you chose to come to this CARLA presentation when your lives are busy and potentially chaotic right now. So we appreciate your support of CARLA, the center, and of Carla and Dustin, the humans. And we look forward to seeing you at a future CARLA talk this semester. So thank you and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.